your joyful journey mentor. And today we're going on a joyful journey in terms of discovering, or I guess, looking at uncertainty and problems. As you're probably aware, at this particular time, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. And we often get really, I guess, upset and often unsure and uncertain as to the future. And this is not a new phenomena. As you know, you've probably experienced this many times before, but it can actually bring up the past for you. It can bring up past, not past opportunities, but past problems, past uncertainty, and it can actually take you back to then and be really unsettling, even though the current circumstances aren't actually affecting you, but it's past circumstances that you haven't actually balanced or neutralized, seen the wholeness, and been able to grow as a result of whatever happened. So I just wanted to share this insight with you because I'm getting a lot of feedback from clients, from practitioners that I'm talking to. And obviously, I do follow the news somewhat, but very rarely. I actually don't look at the news much other than the news I want to look at, which is probably around sport. And anything else, I'm not really that too concerned about. I do read, obviously, health related and wellness related insights and things that I'm interested in, but I don't get too carried away with the day to day politics and the day to day current affairs too much, other than to understand what you might be reading. And so I think, in certainly, the best thing in order to approach this is realize that it's not unusual, that the only certainty in life is really uncertainty, because we do not know what the future holds. We cannot control the future. And so it's a bit of a fantasy to think that I should have control or certainty about the future. No one actually does. Not even futurists can read the future. They can put out a opinion based on statistics and historical data and looking at trends. However, they actually don't know. And so the it's good to come to the realization is that it's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to not know. And it's just settling in to the unknown, which is something like is a skill that takes time to apply and get used to. But if you're feeling a bit unsettled, uncertain, a bit anxious at this point in time, the best thing to do is do things that calm your nervous system and look at the bigger picture. Look at essentially what's within your control, what's out of your control. So, obviously, a war in the Middle East is out of our control. Political leaders' decisions is out of our control. The only really input we have is around voting time, and we're not voting at the moment. So it's not really something we can control. But what we can control is our reaction to it. And the best thing we can do is not to judge it, because when we're judging it, we're taking a polarized perspective of it. We label it as good or bad. And as a result of that, we will take the feelings on as a result of how we've labeled it, how we've judged it. So if you're judging it as a good event, that you like the fact of what's going on and around you, then you'll take this optimistic, positive, and as a result, you feel good about it. However, you are blinded to the downside of whatever's happened, right? And so you're not getting the full picture. And so those feel good hormones can be taken away from you quickly as a result of not seeing the bigger picture at the time. Same for the other side. If we're judging events as negative, as bad, as evil, then we feel that. We're going to feel that in our body. We're going to ultimately express those emotions to others. So that's really a way in which we can create a dysregulated nervous system, a dysregulated emotional response. What we can do is regulate our nervous system and have a much more regulated managed emotional response and behavior as a result of that. The way we do that is obviously accepting things as they are and not judging them. It can be difficult, particularly if you've been brought up to judge, if you've been brought up to see the world as good and bad. An evolved consciousness will just see it as it is. But that takes time, that takes work. And depending on where you are on that journey, will, it's probably why you're listening to this podcast, is to see another perspective. And so anything is what it is. And it's just the perspective we take on it and the judgment we make that creates the feelings within us. So what you ultimately want to see in these events is the wholeness, is to see why the other side, or one side's doing what they're doing, why the other side's doing what they're doing. And you can generally extract a whole picture from it. And ultimately, there is really, it's just what it is. It's people making decisions based on, like, you could say the president's acting well, the president's saying they're acting on behalf of Americans, but whether that's true or not is questionable, right? But that's what he believes. And then you've got the Iranians that dictator or leader is saying that they are acting on the best interests of their citizens. And so, which one's right or wrong? I mean, ultimately, they see the world from their lens. They're doing a job that they believe that they've been employed to do, or they've got the power to do, and they just make decisions. And ultimately, decisions have consequences. Every decision has a consequence. So even a decision that you support will have a consequence. So if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So there's always this consequence of making decisions. And often at the time of making the decision, we're not aware. We can make knee-jerk reactions and not aware of the consequences. And so it's much better to take a bit more time in making decisions. Sometimes you may have experience in making that decision and understand the consequences and understand that you are willing to take on those consequences. But every decision has a equal and opposite reaction. So this is the thing about life, right? We make a decision in our favor, but it's going to have a consequence somewhere else that is not so favorable to someone else. And that is every decision. And that you think about all the humans on planet Earth, 8 billion of us, making decisions in our best interest. Ultimately, everyone does make a decision that gives them more advantages than disadvantages. But for someone else, they could perceive it as more disadvantages over advantages, right? And so, again, we just go along in this ebb and flow and this dynamic of just finding ultimately, that it's balanced ultimately in the end. And this is how we want to take, I guess, on uncertainty, is that yes, there's going to be an up, and there's also going to be an equal and opposite down to every event, everything that happens to us, everything that happens around us. And I think once we can accept that fact, then it's much easier to move forward. We're not struggling with this polarized view and saying it's unfair and saying that the world's mean, or people are mean, or that person, that government, or that, is just evil and all that. Then we're actually carrying that emotional baggage with us. And we'll continue to see evidence that supports our point of view. And so you'll continually, if you're judging something as negative, then you'll continually find information that supports that view of negativity, because that's our pride within us, right? We shut off the other side, and we don't accept that information or believe that information, and we just accept and believe what we want to believe to support our point of view when we're really polarized. And so if you're having a go at Donald Trump or the administration or this sort of thing, you'll continually find information that supports your point of view around that administration is doing the wrong thing, that they do everything bad. But in actual fact, there's good within what they're doing. Um, it's equal and oppositely, yeah, balanced. It's totally balanced, and every government, is making decisions, and so therefore there is an opposition to that decision that will say that they're doing the wrong thing. Every decision they make, there will be an opposition that will build up momentum and criticize the government. But ultimately, they're helping the government see the consequences of their decision that the government may have not seen. And so this will happen with the decisions you make. Every decision you make has a consequence and has a ripple effect onto someone else that may see that behavior or the decision you've made as a bad decision. And so you think it's a good decision because you perceive there be more advantages to you than disadvantages. However, someone else sees it differently. That is life. And that's the law of conservation. Everything is completely balanced. Like energy cannot be created or destroyed, but just transformed from one form to another. And that's what we're doing with decision making. We're just shifting energy, and we shift matter. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, but only transform from one form to another. So it doesn't just disappear, or it doesn't just appear. It's in a constant state of flux, transformation. And that is life. Life is in a constant state of flux, transformation. And we live in these illusions thinking it's not. And this illusion that we have of the world creates pain, suffering. And so if you want to liberate yourself from the pain and suffering, you want to get a broader perspective, see the wholeness, and then it can make you create more understanding and meaning behind what's happening and seeing a different perspective. And this is not necessarily saying that, like, in terms of like morality and stuff like that, it is not saying that you should go about doing things that are doesn't seem right. It's really helping you better understand what's happening. And I think ultimately people that do the wrong thing are heavily polarized. um, and this is where we have, and it's both sides of the perspective. We have extreme conservatism, we have extreme liberalism, right? And both sides of extreme polarization creates these issues. Whereas if we find that middle road, we're much more balanced in our perceptions of what's going on. Our nervous system's better regulated, and we ultimately make better decisions. And so the thing that I want to assist you with is not to jump into these polarized camps, because when you're with these polarized camps, you take on that energy, and ultimately you're going to struggle to see the wholeness. And so it's best to step out of the polarized camp and to step into the other side and to see it from their perspective. And then you can start to see the wholeness, and then you can start to see where the middle road is. And ultimately, that's what this whole transformation picture is. There's polarization everywhere. And then there's the two poles colliding, the two oppositions colliding, and then it results in this middle road or this neutrality. And so war, for example, is a result of extreme polarization in terms of both parties believing that they are right and dead right, or willing to risk the lives of others right. Okay. And that's how extreme polarization can create in these consequences that we really don't see the necessity around. And particularly if we have a balanced perception, is that we think, well, yeah, I can see both sides, and I think ultimately both sides just need to talk and better understand one another and better see how they can work together and create that middle road so both parties win. This comes back to win-win situations in negotiation as opposed to lose-lose or win-lose. So win-lose is, again, one side, really benefits, the other is not. And that's not middle ground. That's not the ultimately going to make both parties feel good about what's happened. And so I think in concluding this episode, it's really helping you see that the only thing that's certain about life is uncertainty. Everything about our future is uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen in the next hour, and no one can predict the next second or minute, right? We can only control our actions in the present moment. So when we're present, there's no uncertainty because we're not focused on the future, and we're not thinking about the past. We're completely present in the moment. So the only way we can hold certainty is by being present. And it's when we deviate from that presence is we create more and more uncertainty. So the further you hold on to the past and relive the past, then that brings up a whole lot of things that you didn't see the wholeness to back then. And then when we fast forward into the future, you can focus on a nightmare situation, which brings up huge amounts of uncertainty, or you can focus on a fantasy, which again, you're then blinded to the other side of that, which then creates the nightmare or the uncertainty. So ultimately, the only way we can really sit with this is to be present. And in the present, we're certain. And then relaxing that nervous system, how you relax your nervous system and calm yourself. And then just start to ponder the wholeness. So if you're just seeing that it's all bad, look for how it's serving, how it's helping, how it's ultimately, wherever you feel that there's hurt to, look at where there's benefit to the same party or the same person or the individual or whatever it might be, the thing, the environment. There's a balancing factor to it all. And I recently interviewed a guy that's a plastic researcher, and he, I guess, opened my eyes to the propaganda and the myths and the lies that we've been sold from people that are anti-plastic. And so he's there balancing this anti-plastic movement and helping people see the middle ground around plastic, because plastic isn't all evil. Yet one party will want you to believe that it's totally evil and it should be banned. However, there's research and compelling research that it serves a purpose and it isn't all bad. And so it was really enlightening interviewing the guy that was a plastic researcher. And I really enjoyed the interview, and it's on my Health Up podcast. So if you want to get a balanced perspective of plastics in the world and how they're serving us and how we've been sold a whole lot of lies, listen to the episode on Health Up. It will help balance your perspective around plastics and calm yourself around the use of plastics. So again, we need an open mind in order to explore the other side. And in order to get an open mind, we need to let go of judgment. We need to detach from judgment and labels. To do that, we need to calm the nervous system and look at the other side and start to balance it. Now, if you're really struggling with this and hold on to polarized views and really get emotional, and you're probably getting angry at me and thinking, how can you say this, Anthony? You're wrong. Have a chat with me. I'd love to have a chat to help you and help you shift your perspective. It's a free conversation. So please reach out, book the discovery session in the show notes, and I can help you see the other side, which will really help calm you and allow you to be more present and more certain. If you've liked this episode, please share it with others that might be seeing a lot of uncertainty and thinking it's unfair and giving up on the world. We don't want anyone to give up. We want people to persevere, because there's one thing for sure: we wouldn't be where we are today without the uncertainty. We wouldn't be where we are today without the problems that past people have encountered that they've decided to overcome. The only way we find solutions to problems is to accept the problem and then to work through it. If we deny there's a problem, then we never overcome that problem. We keep running away from it, and therefore we keep running into it. So if you want to move, well, I think one of the things that I haven't mentioned is there's one thing that's certain in life, as well as uncertainty, is problems. And that's life, is constantly coming into things that you've never encountered before, which we can see as a problem or a challenge or an opportunity to grow. I often refer to it as an opportunity to grow as opposed to a problem or challenge. That enables me to work through the issue as opposed to running into it or throwing up my hands and giving up. So, again, you want to see problems and challenges as opportunities to grow. But that requires an open mindset and requires a relaxed nervous system. So, if you're struggling with that, please reach out to me. I'd love to help and share it with others that could benefit from listening to this episode. And thank you for continuing to tune in to the Joyful Mate podcast.